Right, and we're gonna get started. It's 6:06, so welcome everyone again. My name is Maria Rodriguez. I work for the outreach unit at the New York State Higher Education Services Corporation, or HES. So welcome to this outreach program hosted by us, and we are the New York State College Financial Aid Agency. We administer the Tuition Assistance Program, or TAP, and many other programs that help students access and afford post-secondary education. And today we are discussing the New York State DREAM Act, which opened the door of higher education to thousands of students, providing access to New York State Higher Education Financial Aid Program. And I just want to highlight that October is College Application Month. It's a nationwide campaign that is aimed to bridging the gap between high school graduation and post-secondary education. So its primary goal is to increase the number of students applying for college from New York State High School. And for the 2025 academic year, there has been 129 New York State College are waiving application fee, allowing students to apply for up to 5 SUNY colleges from October 20th to November 3rd without having to pay that application fee. Additionally, CUNY College are also offering similar waiver for applications submitted between October 27 and November 21st. Basically allowing students to apply without having to pay that fee, which typically is between $50-$90. So it's going to help students really take advantage of that opportunity. And also independent colleges and university are also participating in this application fee waiver. For a complete list of all the participating institution and a specific date that they're offering this waiver, please check the website. We really encourage all students to take advantage of this opportunity to explore and apply to colleges across New York State. So we, again, are excited to have this discussion. And now I would like to welcome a wonderful panel of experts from the New York State who will help us become better informed about this topic. And we will be addressing, the eligibility criteria and a lot of information about the DREAM Act. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and for joining us tonight. And now I would like to invite Dr. Linares, our president, who will share some welcoming remark. But Dr. Linares has been an instrumental.
Maria, I'm sorry to interrupt. Before I take a turn, can we have a quick introduction of the panel, please?
Definitely, yeah. So I would like to then ask our panelists to introduce themselves and their organization. And we can start with you, Jalinen.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Maria. My name is Jalinel Beltre, and I'm the Policy Analyst and Compliance Specialist at Hispanic Federation. For those of you not familiar with HF, the Hispanic Federation is a national nonprofit dedicated to empowering and advancing the Latino community through education, health, immigration, civic engagement, and economic equity. In my role, not to get too technical, but I look at how different policies impact Latino communities, especially when it comes to education and equity. And I also support a lot of our advocacy work and compliance work here in New York. And yeah, I'm very excited to be part of this conversation and to be here with all of you and these incredible panelists to discuss how we can continue breaking down the barriers to higher education for all students. So should I popcorn it or are we doing in order?
Please, yes, no, you can.
Okay, I will hand it off to Norma.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Norma Fariz Gordon, and I am a college and career success coach at the New York City Department of Education or New York City Public Schools. I'm at the Office of Student Pathways, and we support all 528 high schools in making sure that they have the most up-to-date information to support our students and our families. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. Thank you so much, and I'll hand it over to my dear colleague and friend, Miss Lucy.
Hello, thank you, Norma. My name is Lucy McIntyre. I'm the Deputy Director and Compliance Officer for the City University of New York Office of Student Financial Assistance. And here at CUNY, we manage all the money for awarding and dispersing of financial aid. And I'm here to answer any of your questions that are related to CUNY and financial aid opportunities. I will pass it off to Natasha.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining us to learn more about the DREAM Act and higher education for all students. My name is Natasha Torres. I am the DREAM Act coordinator at New York State Higher Education Services. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be here with all of you tonight. Pass it back to you, Maria.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to pass it on to our president, Dr. Linares. As I was saying, he has been an instrumental in implementing transparency and confidentiality approach, ensuring students and family feel safe and supported. And he also has been, creating opportunity in education and providing essential support to our immigrant community. So, Dr. Linares, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Maria. And welcome everyone in this panel. And I want to say good evening, buenas noches a todos los que nos están escuchando. I want to say welcome to everyone participating today. I'm also part of the HES family, the Higher Education Services Corporation, which is an agency, as indicated before, that works to really help students and families access higher education. And that's not a job just for us, but, tonight we have a reflection of how important collaboration is. When you see the efforts of trying to reach students, particularly those most vulnerable, that includes the dreamers across New York State, requires collaboration. And tonight is an example of that. I want to take a few moments to speak, just to highlight a few things about my trajectory as an immigrant to New York, and someone that has had a journey of working closely with others, focusing on education, particularly both lower education and higher education, but also as an advocate for immigrant families throughout 50 years, I would say. Time flies, as they say, since I graduated from college. But I want to highlight that, as the oldest of 9 children, my parents...
Kuya, paabot nga ng salamin ko, kuya.
Was that directed to me?
No, I think somebody had their mic open.
Okay.
Please continue, yes.
So the oldest of 9 children, I was born and raised in a small town in the northeast coast of the Dominican Republic. And my parents, I lived 11 of those the years while I was there on the dictatorship, Trujillo. So that experience, never left me up to this very day. But my family, schools went up to 8th grade, and my family felt, my mother convinced my father, let me go to New York. She was a seamstress there. And she came in 1963. 3 years later, they overextended their visa. They were undocumented, working in the garment industry. The 65 immigration reform allowed them to get residency, and they petitioned 7 children they left behind with our grandparents. And I came and landed in the Bronx, not knowing a word of English. The most challenging time for me ever was entering high school when there was no bilingual education. There was, you will find a teacher that was Hispanic and would speak your language, but, they had to whisper because, speaking Spanish was kind of not approved back then. And I spent the 4 years of high school just navigating myself, trying to be disciplined. And I always had to go to school and work. During the 4 years that I was in high school, I worked in bodegas and supermarkets until I finally got my diploma, which was a general diploma, not an academic one. But my parents would have nothing to do with my not going to college. I had to enter college, which I did. And when I landed at City College, I began to get involved as a student, as a Dominican student, and was influenced by the civil rights movement. And there I put in perspective, what I was doing in the United States, coming from the Dominican Republic, and realized that there were waves of other immigrants from different countries, particularly, from Latin America, but from other corners of the world. And the civil rights movement influenced me and helped me then become a teacher. In the meantime, I drove a taxi 5 years at night while I was in college to help my family pay the bills. So I always went to school and I always worked until I graduated from college as the first in the family to be a fifth grade teacher in Washington Heights, Northern Manhattan. So that began for me my years of service. I found myself in the middle of the receiving side of waves of families coming, mostly from the Dominican Republic, and are eager to have their kids get an education, but also to learn English and to, acclimate themselves and be helped to really integrate as newcomers. And I spent 15 years of my efforts as a teacher in the classroom and then as a teacher in college, City College, where I graduated, going through 2 masters, but also getting elected to the school board, helping parents get involved in the schools in Northern Manhattan. And that became a movement. We helped create nonprofit organizations in the community to help address the needs, promoting bilingual education for all schools and children who are newcomers, and at the same time, creating institutions and having an activism to make a difference on education. That led to, in the 80s, for the community and the movement to ask me, why don't you try running for office and represent the community in city government? I said, well, I got 2 masters to become a principal. And they said, we respect that, but why don't you try this? Well, 1,500 volunteers in my campaign, I decided to do it. And about $55,000 that I raised from the community in people's homes got me to get elected as the first Dominican born to be in government in the United States as a member of the city council. So I cannot begin to tell you what it means to be a first representing the aspiration of my diaspora, but also the aspiration of so many immigrant diasporas that land in New York City and New York State. And it was a big lift for me to carry that on, but I passed the test, I have to say, because, so many other people got elected to office, so many other people were able to penetrate and be successful going to college and becoming professional and being part of that effort. And I want to say that after that, I was out of city government because term limits got me out. And I went back to finish my doctorate. I had 2 masters and I went back to try to finish my doctorate. I promised my mother before she passed away, asked me that not to fulfill on her behalf. So I went to Teachers College, Columbia University, and I was able to get my doctorate degree after that. But just as I got my doctorate, the governor, Mayor Bloomberg, asked me if I would join his administration as Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs, being an immigrant myself, to represent all immigrant New Yorkers. So while I was there, I was able to craft, under his leadership, the language access policy for the city of New York, which says when any immigrant limited in English approaches city government, uh, that agency, that service needs to be provided in the language that that New Yorker speaks, and needs to be sensitive to the culture of that immigrant New Yorker. And so that became a policy for the city of New York. Later on, it became a policy for the state of New York. And also celebrating the contribution of immigrants to New York City was crafted, that initiative, when I was Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs. From there, I jumped to the state of New York to be an assemblyman. My first bill was the New York State DREAM Act in 2011. It took years to get it finally approved, but in 2019, it finally passed. By that time, Governor Cuomo had invited me to join his cabinet in 2017 and to be president of HESC, the Higher Education Services Corporation. So in 2019, 7 years after I introduced the New York DREAM Act in the Assembly, it finally passed and it came to HESC. It came to me to help implement the DREAM Act. I cannot tell you how proud I felt, not about what I did, but about the community and the efforts that so many of, those that are even here in this panel, the Hispanic Federation worked very closely when I introduced the DREAM Act to get it off the ground and to get it pushed forward with Jose Peralta, in whose name we name the DREAM Act, who carried it in the Senate. And the Hispanic Federation was part of that. CUNY was part of that. And the New York City Department of Education was part of that. The labor movement was part of that. The nonprofit organizations throughout were part of that. Colleagues of mine were part of that. And I cannot tell you how proud I was when I began the process in HESC to roll out the DREAM Act and to see thousands of dreamers get financial aid. Now, I must say that with Governor Kathy Hochul, with whom I have worked very closely, along with the chancellors of SUNY and CUNY, the Commissioner of Education at the state of New York, the Chancellor of New York City Public Schools, the private colleges and universities that also educate our young people. I have made an effort, CICU and so forth, the Commission of Independent Colleges and University, as an example, large network of private schools. I have worked to collaborate with all of those sectors and the community to really make sure that dreamers have this opportunity and students and families have that opportunity. But I must highlight that Governor Kathy Hochul, in the years she's been governor in the last 5 years, has really made education a high priority, especially higher education. She expanded the TAP program. She has really now just introduced for SUNY and CUNY private free college for students or for those who never got a college degree, from age 25 to 55, to be able to now this year be able to attend college. And I want to highlight that
Y
leadership
quiero
along
recalcar
with the state legislature.
bajo esa
So
legislación.
basically what I want to conclude in saying, it's been 50 years since I landed in Washington Heights to be a fifth grade teacher, and much has been accomplished. Much work still remains to be done. I want dreamers and parents to know, and I want those who have joined us to know that no matter what you see coming our way from other levels of government at the federal level, in New York State, the doors are wide open for you to attend, whether you are documented or not, to make sure and to know that your information is protected, that we have many programs that are there available for you, and you're not alone. You have a lot of people supporting you every step of the way, and we are part of that army of people to make sure that you have access to higher education, and there shouldn't be any limitations. We're eliminating barriers that may exist for you to be able to be successful and realize your dream. If I did it, you can certainly do it. And you're not alone. You have a lot of support that I didn't have when I began in the beginning, but there were a lot of people helping me along the way. And so I encourage you to pursue a higher education, become a professional, realize your dream, and never forget your community that is always by your side every step of the way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hilario. As we can see, he's a pioneer of, the topic that we are going to be discussing tonight. So thank you for that. And thank you all for being here. So we will start off with some questions for each of our panelists. And if anyone in the audience has any question, please feel free to add them to the Q&A session. And we will have some time at the end to go over any question or any concern that you might have. But I would like to start by...
And I need to excuse myself because I have another commitment, but I think I leave everyone in excellent hands. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this wonderful panel.
Thank you for that inspiration and that history, because this is what we need, and now Natasha is going to give us an overview of the DREAM Act. Specifically, what are some of the qualifications for eligibility, and could you also share information about the financial aid award amounts and scholarship timeframe?
Yes, good evening, everyone. So before we get started, as Maria said, I'm just going to give you some brief information about the DREAM Act so we're all on the same page, and then we'll get into more details through conversation with our wonderful panelists. So firstly, to reiterate, we're from New York State Higher Education Services. So we're the New York State financial aid agency for higher education. So we administer grants and scholarships for students in New York State. So how do you apply for these grants and scholarships? Currently, there's 3 pathways. There's a FAFSA TAP pathway, a New York State DREAM Act pathway, which we'll focus on tonight, and the alternate eligibility pathway. But just so everyone's aware, the FAFSA TAP pathway is one way to apply for New York State aid, right? So this is going to be for students who are citizens or eligible non-citizens like permanent residents. So these students will apply for FAFSA, and once that's complete, that's the federal application for financial aid, then the students can go in and apply for TAP. So that's one pathway. Now we know not everyone can apply through the FAFSA TAP pathway because not everyone's a US citizen, right? So that's where the DREAM Act pathway comes in. The DREAM Act pathway is going to be for students who can apply through that pathway either because of their citizenship status or their New York State residency status. We'll get into who's eligible for this pathway a little more in this presentation. And last but not least, there's one more group of students who can apply for New York State aid, and that's going to be through our new alternate eligibility pathway. So this alternate eligibility pathway is going to be for students who are eligible for FAFSA. So maybe again, you're a citizen or permanent resident. But maybe you don't want to apply for the FAFSA because one of your parents or a spouse is not a citizen. So this pathway just allows you to apply directly to TAP, directly to New York State administered aid, instead of doing the FAFSA first. So what are the New York State financial aid programs that we administer that you can apply to? So here's a few. So the biggest award program we administer is the TAP program. The TAP program gives students up to $5,665 each academic year towards their tuition. So Dreamers can apply for this program, so can FAFSA TAP students and our alternate eligibility students. We also have an amazing STEM scholarship. So if you're a high school senior and you want to study a career in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, the STEM program may be for you. And this program will cover the entire tuition at a SUNY or CUNY college, which is an amazing, can be a great help. Next, we have an Excelsior Scholarship. This also covers tuition at a SUNY or CUNY college for students who are eligible for the program. We also have an ETA Scholarship. This one is for private colleges, so not the SUNY or CUNY schools. And this gives students up to an additional $6,000 towards their tuition each academic year. So we have many more grants and scholarships that we administer in New York
Y
State, and
tenemos
Dreamers
muchos
can
más
apply to all of these.
becas y pueden solicitar para todas ellas.
Okay, so who's eligible for the DREAM Act, and what is the DREAM Act a little bit more? So just to give everyone some background, the DREAM Act gives undocumented students and other students access to apply to all of those grants and scholarships I just told you about. So the DREAM Act program itself is not financial aid.
Y no
You
es
apply
economía
for
financiera.
financial aid, and if you apply for the DREAM Act and if you're
Uno
approved, you can
puede
continue to
solicitar
apply
para
for
Dream
financial
Act
aid.
y puede continuar.
Okay, so who's eligible for the DREAM Act?
¿Quién es
So
elegible
you have to meet
para
3 different sets of criteria to be
Hay
eligible
unos
for DREAM
criterios
Act.
para ser
The
elegible
first
para
one is immigration status.
es
If
el
you meet
estado
one of these
migratorio.
immigration statuses,
Si
you may
uno
be eligible.
tiene estatus migratorio,
The first one is a U
el
visa
primero
or
es
T visa. Or if you have temporary
o
protected status, known as
si tiene
TPS.
estatus migratorio.
Additionally, if you have DACA, you can be eligible
Además, si
for
uno
DREAM
tiene
Act.
DACA,
Or if you're without lawful immigration status, which means you're undocumented, right? Those are all
quiere
different
decir
statuses that
documentado,
can
¿cierto?
apply for the DREAM Act. However, there is a population of citizens or permanent, non-permanent residents who can apply for DREAM Act as well. If you are a citizen, but your parents
Y
live outside of
ciudadanos
New
y
York
sus
State,
padres son.
you can still apply for DREAM Act and receive New York State aid potentially. So that's where the second criteria comes in. In addition to one of those immigration statuses, you have to meet an education background to be eligible.
Puede recibir
You
para
have to have
ser elegible.
attended a New York State high school for at least 2 years
Usted
and graduated to be
años
eligible for the DREAM Act. Or
para ser
if
elegible.
you haven't been here 2 years in high school, that's okay. There's other pathways to still achieve it. If you have a New York State equivalency diploma, you can also be eligible for the DREAM Act. And last but not least, if you're being charged in-state tuition at a SUNY or CUNY college for a reason other than residency, you can be eligible for DREAM Act. So for example, let's say I have DACA and I went to New York State High School for 2 years and graduated, that meets the criteria for DREAM Act. The only other consideration is if you're applying for an undergraduate degree, you have to apply for college or for the DREAM Act within 5 years of graduating. So just keep that in mind, there is a time limit. That's who's eligible for the DREAM Act. And that's what we're going to talk about mostly tonight. Who's eligible and how you can continue applying for college. Now, as I mentioned, we do have one more pathway, the alternate eligibility pathway. We're not going to talk about that pathway tonight, but I do want to give everyone some information about this pathway because it may be helpful to learn about it. So, alternate eligibility pathway is similar to DREAM Act in that it's not a financial aid award. You just apply for it, and if you're eligible, you can go on to apply for TAP and your other New York State administered aid. So this pathway is for students who are, again, U.S. citizens or FAFSA eligible non-citizens, like a permanent resident, who don't want to complete a FAFSA application because they're worried about the privacy of their family members' information. So maybe I'm eligible for FAFSA because I'm a citizen, but maybe my dad's undocumented, and I don't want to write that on the FAFSA application. Through this pathway, you can skip the FAFSA and apply directly for New York State aid. So this pathway, you can apply for a TAP award. That's the one that can give you up to $5,665 per academic year. It's really important to note, if you're going through the alternate pathway, you're not going to be eligible for some of the programs we discussed, like the Excelsior Scholarship. The reason why is because it's the way the law was written. So unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that at the moment. But if you think that this is the best pathway for you and your family, then you should still apply. That's a decision for you to discuss if you want to apply for FAFSA or if you want to apply for the alternate pathway. If you want more information about this pathway, we'll give you some resources and tools. We also have a DREAM Act and alternate pathway support session where we can talk one-on-one and closer detail about all of these really personal questions and figure out what's right for you. Before we get into our discussion about the DREAM Act tonight, I do want to point out some great resources we have. Our first one is our FAFSA Ready training page. So if you go to our website, hesc.ny.gov, you'll see our FAFSA Ready training page. This is a new training tool we developed, which has videos, downloadable resources, and live seminars all the time, and it can help you with anything you need help with. If you need help with applying for the DREAM Act, we have a lot of resources available for you through here. I'll drop the link to this in the chat in a moment. Anyone has any questions about anything we're discussing tonight, let us know, and we most likely have some type of resource already developed through this FAFSA Ready training site. And last but not least, we have so many other resources as well that we offer that we try and help make applying for the DREAM Act and applying for all our other scholarship and grant programs really easy. So if you go to our website again, hesc.ny.gov, you'll see them there. We have an events page. If you go to help, you'll see events. We host events all the time where we can teach you how to apply step by step. We can meet with you one-on-one. Anything you really need help with, we probably have an event for you. Follow us on our social media as well, NYS Student Aid, and you'll see all of the information about upcoming events there and hopefully some helpful tips about how to apply for everything. So that's it for now, but if you have any questions, hopefully we answer them throughout this panel, and if we do not, please type all your questions in the Q&A box and we will answer them at the end of the panel.
Thank you, Natasha, for that overview. And as we move forward, our community-based partner, as Dr. Linares was indicating, collaboration is key. And those partner has been instrumental in helping us reach students and family who can benefit from the DREAM Act. They have served as a bridge between community and our agency, and we are so grateful for that. And we know that there are some myths and misinformation out there about the DREAM Act, and they have helped us really get the fact out to the community. And beginning with you, Norma, has there been continuing hesitation within immigrant community to provide information for the New York State DREAM Act when they're completing the application? And and if so, what advice would you offer to those who have concerns?
Thank you so much, Maria, for your question. So many of our families have felt comfortable applying, especially when they have a trusted relationship with their counselor or school community. But some of the hesitation remains due to fears of around privacy, misinformation, or immigration concerns. And so the beauty is that the New York State DREAM Act is separate from the federal aid process. And as a state program, it's designed to expand access to financial aid for eligible students. And so the information shared on DREAM Act application is not provided to federal immigration authorities, and confidentiality has always been a top priority for both schools and HESC. So that information is not shared. Families should get information from trusted sources such as their school counselors, college access professionals, or even legal advocates. HESC, as Natasha mentioned, offers strong support, including one-to-one appointments and workshops. And New York City Public Schools is also supporting families one-on-one through our free advising program. If you are a New York City Public School student, we will meet with you Tuesday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and be able to support you directly. But also, we always encourage all eligible students to apply for every form of aid that they qualify for, understanding that every situation is unique. And so if a student or families have specific concerns, they should always seek guidance from qualified legal professionals so that they get information for their particular situation, right? So like that personalized advice, which is really important.
Thank you. Lucy, Jalinen, do you guys agree or do you guys have anything to add to
Or
this?
totally agree with Norma. I mean, again, it is a choice, but we always say feel comfortable, ask the questions, get comfortable, right? We want to see you succeed, and you will get great advice from all of these wonderful agencies that are here today.
I echo that. There is a lot of hesitations that do stem from fear, like fear of sharing your personal information or fear that applying can or will affect, your family or your immigration status. And at Hispanic Federation, we do work very closely with immigrant communities every single day. So we understand that fear that doesn't just come from nowhere. I mean, it's generations of systemic exclusion and mistrust in institutions. So um, that is completely valid and real and deeply felt. And with all that being said, I also do want to add that education does remain one of the most powerful equalizers. And despite that fear, Hispanic Federation, our partners, so many of the wonderful organizations that we work with, those providing legal and educational services, are fully committed to ensuring that every eligible student has the opportunity to apply for aid safely. And um, I also want to acknowledge and thank HESC for their efforts to protect students, because that's really important in these trying times that we are living through. Their decision to scramble student IDs and decoupling the FAFSA from state aid application is just shows a willingness to meet students where they're at and respect their choices, because these are not imagined fears. Like I said, like these are very, very real, and they're palpable and they're felt. um and lastly, I just want to add that at HF, our education programs, like we do encourage students to complete um, the FAFSA and the DREAM Act when eligible, and we make sure that they have the access to accurate information and the trusted guidance in the process, because it's really sometimes not just about filling out forms. It's just about helping families feel safe and confident to take that step. And um, we don't want fear or confusion to stop students from applying and missing out on the opportunity to go to college altogether. So we want every family to feel informed and confident and supported in every step of the way.
Thank you. And Natasha, what step have we taken to address this concern regarding applicant confidentiality?
Yes, so we want you at HESC to feel that no matter your immigration status, you're safe when applying for New York State financial aid. And we've taken steps to not just make this a dream, but make it a reality. So Yalinel touched on the first one. So in the past, before the DREAM Act was invented, before it was passed, when we were telling colleges how much a student was receiving in financial aid from us, we would report it by social security number. Once the DREAM Act was passed, we realized that not everyone had a social security number. So now when we're reporting your financial aid award to colleges, we report everyone's financial aid award by using your student ID number. Everyone has a student ID number, so this will protect your privacy as a dreamer. Colleges will not know that you don't have a social security number because of us. So that's the first step we've taken. That's why it's also really important to make sure when you're applying for New York State financial aid, you put your correct student ID number. And if you're not sure of it, if you find out later, go back and make that change so we can make sure we correctly report your financial aid award to your college. Additionally, when we're reporting financial aid, we don't disclose your dreamer status to colleges. There are very limited people who can know that you're a dreamer. We report dreamer awards and non-dreamer awards on the same reporting methods. So we have something called a roster. That's how we send student awards to colleges. And we send all the student awards on the same roster. So we don't tell colleges about your dreamer status. We do other things as well, like for our undocumented students and our DACA students, we don't ask you for your address. We don't store that information so that we never have it on file for you. We just ask the zip code that you live in and the state. So we do all of these things consciously to try and make you feel safe and protected when you're applying for the DREAM Act. Lucy?
Natasha, I just want to point out when a student changes their school code, it is very important to know that your student ID, if you are attending a CUNY school, is not the same student ID when you're attending, say, SUNY Albany. So if you are changing your school code, please remember to update the student ID once you get it. Because again, we're not asking for a social security number, and it is important because we are matching on student ID. And if you leave your CUNY ID, you're not going to make a match. And we want to make sure that all your information is correct. So just a tidbit. And again, if you're going to a private school or if you're going to an independent school, wherever the case may be, just remember to change your school code and use the correlating student ID so that all matches, because we want you to get your money as quickly as possible.
Yep. And I see in the chat some people are asking private questions at the end. I'm happy to stay on, but I also want to let everyone know that we host a DREAM Act support session twice a month. I host it, and it's a one-on-one session, so you can feel safe to ask any questions there anytime as well. We do this in a one-on-one setting, so everyone has that private space to talk about sensitive information like your social security number or not social security number. So we host that twice a month. I just put the link in the chat, so feel free to join us anytime to ask any questions about what would be best for you in your financial aid.
Wonderful, thank you. And the next question, I'm going to direct it to Norma, Lucy, and Jalinen. Given that the government agency do not typically offer full cost of attendance award, what other opportunity can Dreamer pursue to help them pay for college?
Okay, I'm going to go first because I want to just describe what CUNY has to offer you. Now, even as a dreamer, you are eligible for our opportunity programs. We have several. We have Macaulay Honors College, which will help you with all additional gap aid that you may need, that whatever the DREAM Act is covering, we will cover additional costs. But keep in mind that Macaulay is a high achieving school within CUNY, so you need to get in academically in order to be eligible for that program. Secondly, we have at our community college, we have College Discovery, and it helps economically and academically disadvantaged students to apply for additional funding and program resources, which is highly recommended. And then once a student completes community college, they will go on to a 4-year senior college, right? And that is within our SEEK program. They can also start out at a 4-year school. And these programs offer students to graduate at a less stringent rate, provide time when taking tests, provide additional resources, travel expenses. So these are great programs for you to take advantage. And CUNY also has another great program, ASAP. ASAP is the accelerated study to get an associate's degree. Also provides additional resources. And again, we are not looking at immigration status. Everyone is eligible if you meet the criteria. So it's important to make sure that you look into the school that offers that program. And I believe we have it at 14 CUNY colleges. And we also offer a New York City Balloon Scholarship for students. It's an additional $700 a year that is offered by the New York City Council, as long as you are attending CUNY and your GPA was at least an 80 average when you graduated high school and you started 1 year, at least within the first year, and you didn't attend any other school, and you will maintain that scholarship for 8 semesters as long as you remain academically eligible and must remain in the 5 boroughs. Okay, so we have lots of programs to offer, so you don't need to be worried about, will I get additional money? These programs will help you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Helena.
Oh, okay. No, okay. So great question. So outside of the CUNY system, there are also other college opportunity programs like the New York State Educational Opportunity Program for state universities of New York, and the New York State Higher Education Opportunity Program at private colleges that do offer academic, financial, and personal support for students that are economically and educationally disadvantaged. So HEOP and EOP students are often maybe not the most academically excelling students, but that need is there financially. I myself was a higher education opportunity student many moons ago, and it allowed me to go to school for free and pay my tuition, my books, my supplies. So I'm very grateful for that. So I will blab on about it to whoever listens. And yes, in many cases, students that meet the residency criteria of being New York State residents and are financially eligible and academically eligible, they can access EOP or HEOP just like any other New York State resident. And to add on to that, the Hispanic Federation also just has a very long history of supporting undocumented and mixed status youth families. There is the Dreamer Scholarship Fund, which offers supports to Dreamers to finance their college education, focusing on three main barriers identified as barriers for college graduation: tuition, meal cards. And this program is offered to students attending college in New York City. I will put the contact information of the hotline and our immigration team in the chat. And yeah, there's also HF also has Crear Futuros, which is an initiative that works to increase Latino student retention and graduation rates across CUNY and SUNY, because it's not just about getting our students in the doors, it's really supporting them and pushing them to that finish line. And this program just connects students with trained peer mentors who offer academic guidance, personal support, connections to campus, all these other resources. And yeah, that support is just available for students to help them, obviously, like push them through that, graduation finish line. And Crear Futuros, along with HEOP and EOP, they do foster that great sense of belonging, because they do have those cohort models, which is great for students that are living shared lived experiences. And that was something that I remember being very great for me. And just to add on, there's also a need to sort of recognize the social cost of attendance that it comes with attending higher ed in the US. Many students are breadwinners or non-traditional learners who stop out and return when they can. And even when they are traditional students like myself, because I went straight out of high school, there are very high social costs, like limited access to technology, or just in general, like financial barriers that make it difficult to like fully participate in campus life. And there's like stigma attached to that. And programs like Crear Futuros and HEOP and EOP really do help counter that by building in like those support networks and that cohort model, like I was mentioning earlier. And yeah, I'm going to add all of those links to that now, because I can't talk and do that at the same time. So Norma, I'm switching it over to you.
Thank you so much. Those are such incredible, valuable resources. And we have been adding some links into the chat, so please take note of those. So there's specific websites like Immigrants Rising, where you could specifically look for scholarships that are status free, shall we say. But oftentimes students might avoid scholarships that are not on a special site like Immigrants Rising, because they might assume that they don't qualify. So it's always important to review all scholarships and understand their eligibility. If a scholarship is not asking for status or a social security number, then students should apply. There's a lot of scholarships that students are eligible for, even if they are undocumented. And also, many private colleges, especially in New York, will ask students to apply using the CSS profile, and they will be able to grant them institutional funds. So there's lists, and most school counselors have the list of more undocumented friendly schools. And so that's really important. And also, New York City Public School students recently received their welcome letter that specified the colleges that they should be looking at. Should they be looking at four-year colleges or Macaulay based on their GPA, or should they be focusing on the two-year colleges to start? And so, again, I've linked the free advising program for New York City Public Schools in the chat. That's just a really important way for us to support students one-to-one and or at their schools with their counselor. In addition, New York City Public School students, as they exit and graduate, are eligible. Everyone gets a college and career bridge coach. It is a partnership with CUNY K-16, and every student, whether they're CUNY bound or not, will get the support of a college student who gets paid to do this incredibly important work, and they will have that support from about June until mid to late September. So it really helps our students get to the other side. So I'm really proud to say that all 55,000 plus students graduating out of New York City Public Schools will have outreach from a college and career bridge coach. So be on the lookout.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So it's important to just know that there's so many opportunity. I think we just have to make sure that we are getting organized, that we are asking questions, that we are attending some of the events that we are talking about so that you have all that information. And now I'm going to ask a question to Natasha. So we know that eligibility is determined and award amount are calculated based on the responsive to the application question. Um, what do you find are two areas where there may be confusion in how students respond?
There's definitely a lot of confusion about, it can be overwhelming to apply for any financial aid program, and for the DREAM Act specifically as well, there's confusion. So I'm gonna allow our panelists to talk about that a little bit, but I do want to let everyone know that we've put out resources for the DREAM Act specifically about teaching you how to apply. So firstly, I'm gonna put in the chat a video. It's a video walkthrough of how to apply for the DREAM Act step by step. So if you're confused or feeling overwhelmed, I encourage you to look at it. It's a short video. We summarized it, and that's resource number one. Resource number two I'm dropping here is a whole list of resources we've developed. And these ones are not a video, they're printable or PDF form on the laptop. And some of them include, again, a step-by-step guide on how to apply, some general tips about the DREAM Act. So I encourage everyone to look at those before applying, so you don't get caught up in these mistakes. I'm gonna pass it to Norma first to talk about some mistakes that she sees when students are applying.
So students sometimes will invert information. Sometimes they'll put in the parents' information instead of the students' information and vice versa. That's something we see often. So it's really important to pay attention. Whose information are they asking for? Sometimes students also, they're nervous and they rush. And so it's really important to take their time because you can have a typo. Sometimes students will also not remember which school they've indicated as the college. And so going back to what Lucy had shared, it's really important that once a student commits in May, typically by May 1st, the latest, the national commitment deadline, it is important that students go back and make sure that their college is correct and that they're choosing a New York State school, right? And so that it's really important that they're getting that money connected. We've also just seen name that not matching their name, right? So some students go by their middle name, some students go by a nickname, Alexandra goes by Alex. And so they might use a shortened version or a nickname, and that tends to also create a slowdown, right? Because we're still going to support students in fixing those errors. And so I know it could be really frustrating. So I usually tell them, let's do it right the first time so it can minimize the back and forth. And just to note, for our students who are applying to the New York State TAP versus the DREAM Act, if there's any errors in their FAFSA, that will certainly create a problem with their TAP. And so that is super important. Oftentimes people are looking and looking to see what's the problem with my TAP. There might not be a problem with your TAP. It's probably with your FAFSA.
Let me just add something here, Norma, since you're on talking about the applications and data. Another piece, date of birth. We all know that in the US, the date of birth is the month, day, and year. And outside the US, it's day, month, year. So we want to just make sure that in the US, it needs to be in the US standard, right? So again, if CUNY and SUNY and most of your colleges, your counselor's helping you. And then when you go and complete the FAFSA application or the TAP application or the DREAM Act application, you're writing you're inputting your incorrect date of birth, which again will delay your aid from being awarded and dispersed. So just, make a note of that. I know that sometimes it's hard for people to remember, but again, it is month, day, and year in the US.
Yes, definitely. Everyone reread. Make sure your name is spelled correctly as it is on your college and high school records. Make sure your date of birth is correct. Make sure your student ID and college choice is up to date. And make sure you're uploading any required documentation. At the end of your application, sometimes there's always a supporting document section. So reread that carefully because we will tell you exactly what you need to upload. And the email that you're using to apply, we will send you an email reminder as well telling you, please upload this document. So just keep an eye out for your email, and for any questions about application issues, if you think you made a mistake or you just want someone to help you, join us in the DREAM Act support session and I'll help you one-on-one, and we'll make sure that everything is submitted correctly. And ask your college counselors and high school counselors as well, okay?
Natasha, you make a wonderful point about email. So you know what I'm going to say next. Guys, remember, if you are in high school, your high school may not support your email address anymore, or the current school, and you're transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year. Try again, 99.999. Listen to me when I talk to you. Please use your personal email address. Create one, because it is so important. Because if you're not able to access the old email, it's only going to create application problems. So please create a general one, either with Yahoo, Gmail, whatever the young folks are using these days, because I still have my AOL. It is, yes, I do. No, I do have my AOL. Again, just make sure you're not using a school email, or you're not using a high school email, because they will be turned off. And again, you're using your high school email for your high school stuff and your college email for college stuff. But when it comes to your financial aid applications or scholarship applications, you should be using a personal email address. That's always best.
I am echoing that because I don't know, my high school was kind enough to let us all continue with our high school emails, and that is the one that has been on my FAFSA. But do not be like me, okay? Don't do that for any reason that for some reason you can't access that email anymore. That's bad. But Natasha actually mentioned what I was going to touch on, that there is, documentation confusion, families, students not knowing, I don't know, for example, like forms of proof of residence, like what's appropriate, education history, what's acceptable. And I know that is definitely can create a very big like hesitation to fill out those sections when they do request like those like sensitive information. So in that case, I think it's really helpful when you have a lot of community workshops, like in Spanish, other languages, other guides, that make a big difference in demystifying the process, because it is very stressful. It's like a maze of unfamiliar terms and all these questions that can be very overwhelming. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, I think going through the financial aid process can be challenging when you add those components of students that are applying to the DREAM Act. It can also create other confusion. So, but as Natasha said, she has event where she can help student one-to-one, as well as our outreach unit. So just make sure that you are asking questions and that you attend some of those events that are available for you to make sure that you are navigating the financial aid process without some of the confusion that can be created. And moving forward to the next question for Lucy and Natasha, once someone has been notified that they are eligible for an award such as TAP, what are some common issues that might prevent them from receiving the award?
Well, again, we want to make sure that everyone understands HESC is the dictating agency to make sure you are financially eligible for the award. Now, the school that you attend, make sure that you're academically eligible. Now, there are two different things. So again, you need to be taking the right amount of credits. You need to be taking the right amount of courses towards your degree. And that doesn't always match. We now have part-time TAP, right? Which is regardless of immigration status. right? So again, you may think you're eligible for a full-time award, but you're not taking 12 tappable credits, you're taking 6 tappable credits, so your aid will be adjusted. So it's important to understand that HESC determines financial eligibility, and the school, it ensures that you're in the right program. You declare a major when you're supposed to. It is after 30 credits at a community college, at 60 credits at a senior college, which is a 4-year school. Because again, we get very comfortable in the way we speak at the college level. And I would just want to make sure that the audience understands at a 4-year school, right? You're taking 120 credits. So when you reach the midpoint, you need to declare a major. And again, if you change majors, it can throw off your progress in pursuit. You need to maintain a GPA. It is very, very important that you keep up to par with your classes and your studies, because if you fail a class, some programs will not allow for your aid to repay for those classes. So it's important to make sure that you are sitting with an academic advisor. I would recommend every semester to make sure that the classes that you're taking count towards your academic progress and your financial aid.
Natasha, anything that you would like to add to this question?
Yes. So as Lucy said, making sure that you're in communication with your college counselors, your college financial aid office, to make sure you're academically eligible, it's going to be really important. If your college reports to us that you didn't take any classes this semester, we can't give you the money, right? So make sure that you're in communication with your college first and foremost to make sure everything's going well for your award. Additionally, sometimes we can have an issue with your income verification. So for example, I've had cases where students indicated on their TAP application that they were a foster youth student. So they applied with their income and they were approved as a foster student. Later, we find out they're not a foster student. So when a foster student applies and someone who's not in foster care, there's different income requirements. So if we see that your income is no longer eligible because you're not actually a foster youth, then we might have to revoke your award because you're no longer eligible based on your income. So make sure you really reread your application and make sure everything you're reporting is accurate. Make sure you're reporting the correct income. Make sure you're looking at your parents' taxes with them. Make sure that's all correct, because if we evaluate later and see that there was a typo or see that there was an issue, we may take back your award or have to adjust your award, right? Sometimes students get higher awards because we see that they actually earned less than they told us. So it can go either way, but just make sure you reread to make sure that all the information is correct and accurate, and reach out to us for help with anything. If you're unsure about how to answer any of the tax questions, that's completely understandable. Again, that's why we host so many events to help you, and your college will probably help you as well because they usually host events as well. So just make sure everything's correct there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And although we do not have a student with us today to share their personal experience when applying for the New York State DREAM Act, I would like to ask one of our panelists to share any insight of experiences that you have with students who have been positive impacted by receiving financial aid through the New York State DREAM Act. Could you share like an example, a story that highlight the impact that it had on their education journey, or even providing future opportunities?
I'll take that one. So Maria, we have so many students here. I mean, again, we don't disclose any information, but keep in mind that the DREAM Act is a funding source. That funding source could help them pay their full tuition, all right? It won't cover fees. That leaves them with a very, very minimal balance here at CUNY. It is less than $300. So again, it does cover tuition if they're financially eligible according to whatever TAP tells us, which with HESC tells us what they're eligible for. And again, it gives them a change for social mobility, right? It lets them get into the workforce. It gives them an education. And we go back to what Dr. Linares said, get educated, become a successful member of society, right? And then you see that, and again, there's so many statistics. For every dollar that is invested in New York State financial aid, there's an $8 return. I mean, you have to invest in, again, these folks are here to seek a new life, right? With a new life comes an education, comes a career pathway, creates a life for them. And that's what you want to do. You want to set these students up so that they succeed and not fail. So it's important to make sure that we see our students and we see them prosper. And again, they wind up coming back and doing a lot of good work for organizations that help them. So you see the 360 rotation. You see how Dr. Lennar has entered into the country, and you see what he's done for the whole state. I mean, he's provided the DREAM Act. I mean, yes, it took him years, but he got there. So think about what it's going to look like in 30 years when you say you came back and you said, hey, it was because of the DREAM Act I was able to go to CUNY or SUNY, and I went possibly for free with very minimal cost, and they didn't, graduate with loan debt. I mean, we're all very reasonably priced.
Yeah, and I would say don't be afraid to reach out to us and ask for help if you're unsure. Recently, I had a student email us. She was an undocumented student and she wanted to pursue a master's in teaching. We administer a scholarship for students who are pursuing a master's in teaching. She was worried because one of the requirements for the scholarship is to work as a teacher after. And to work as a teacher, you need work authorization. And as an undocumented student, she didn't have that. Me and a representative from the CUNY Undocumented Immigrant Student Center. Her name is Cynthia Carvajal. She's amazing. We both met with the student and we figured out a way for her to still participate in the program and a way for her to still get experience teaching in New York City after graduation. So sometimes you may think that there's not a solution, but by reaching out, we can help you, and we'll always try our best to make sure that there's a pathway for you to pursue the career and the education you want.
Wonderful. Anyone else would like to add that, or?
I just want to add, Maria, that CUNY also has immigration services here, right? We help students with legal assistance when it comes to getting their documentation together and when they go in front of immigration. So we have an office that's led by Monique Francis, who is a very, very loud voice in New York State. And her office is always here to help students. Again, Cynthia is a great advocate on the student side. And then when they're trying to get their immigration stuff, Monique is wonderful. And I've worked alongside Monique for almost 25 years.
Wonderful. So we're getting close to the end, unfortunately. And I have a question for all of you. What would you say to dreamer of today and also tomorrow to encourage them to pursue a college degree?
I'd love to take that. I have to say, after working with hundreds of students throughout the years, I've always told our students, don't let anyone get in the way of your success. And together, we're always going to find ways to support all students to accomplish their dream and their goals. So just surround yourself with the support. There's an endless amount of support, and we will get there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to go. You belong here. The DREAM Act is so much more than it's a tool that allows all students, regardless of their immigration status, to build themselves and to contribute to society and innovate through higher education. And speaking for myself, first gen Latina, Dominican parents, English was not my first language. Like all the things growing up low income, New York City, I know how hard it is to think that college is even a remote possibility. For me, it was like either get it paid or you're not going. So I did that. Shout out to HEOP one more time. And now I'm sitting here on this panel and I'm talking and to all of you with these amazing, amazing panelists on here. And that would not have been possible if, I didn't, like look for the things that I needed to look for. And I had the support behind me and I persevered. But I just wanted to remind you all that you're like not alone. You have a community advocating for you and supporting you every single step of the way. And I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but like every student that we fail to empower potential loss to our communities and to our country. So we don't want that. We want everybody who's eligible for a program to get in and to get their degree, because your degree may carry your name, but it's not just for you, it's for your community. It's for your parents, it's for your ancestors, it's for the future people that are going to be walking those same halls as you. You're making that easier for them, widening that gap. Widening that path for them to walk in those same footsteps and also be great. So yeah, that is what I had to say.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I think inspiration is part of being first gen and using some of those services that we are discussing to make sure that you make it there. So, anybody else would like to add anything before we wrap up?
Yes, I would just like to tell everyone here, especially if you're a student listening, to be your own biggest advocate. Sometimes when you go to someone for help, you may not receive the answer you're looking for the first time. And I know how frustrating that can be, especially when you've tried so hard to find the answer. But keep going and be your own biggest advocate. Someone will listen to you and someone will uplift you. Just you have to make sure you're asking the right people. And right now, you're in a group of people who do want to uplift you and help you, and make sure that your voices are heard and your problems are solved and your dreams are achieved. So like I said, there's been so many resources put into here. New York City Public Schools, if you're a student, there's one-on-one counseling. We have the New York State Dream Act support session twice a month with me. Lucy mentioned that CUNY has so many awesome opportunities, and all of the CUNY staff is really wonderful, and they'll definitely help you. And I know Yalinel has opportunities for you as well through Hispanic Federation to receive help. So just make sure you're asking for help and keep asking until you find the answer you're looking for, okay?
One more plug, Natasha. I just want to remind folks, for the people that live in New York City, right? And you graduate from a New York City high school, remember, you are guaranteed a seat at the City University of New York at a community college. You want it, you got it. All right. Now, again, you're not forced. You can choose where you want to go. But if all else fails and you need to start here, you can start here, finish here, and even get your PhD here. All right. CUNY will take you through the whole process. So just a reminder, because sometimes, we get a little bit uncomfortable going out of our zone. So if you're comfortable staying in New York City, that's great. If you want to go to the upper counties and go to SUNY or any of the private schools, it's totally up to you. What I would just say is, please make sure that you have a funding plan, right? Making sure before you leave for school, wherever that may be, make sure your documents are in order. Make sure your funding sources are secure, because the last thing we want to see is something fall out of for lack of better, fall out of the realm, and you're stuck with a balance. And we don't want you to be in a balanced situation. We want to see everything covered, right? But you have to make a conscious decision on what you and your family can afford, right? And we cannot dictate that to you. So those are the conversations that Natasha said to have with your family, making sure that you have the proper resources. And again, even if you need help, you can go to a SUNY or CUNY school and we will help you. Even if you're not coming here, we will still help you make decisions and help you navigate the processes.